Hey everyone, it's me Lone, hope you're doing alright. Let's talk about the topic of remasters, and in particular for two titles that for years now people have been screaming about, and those titles are of course Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Pretty much every man and his dog wants a remaster or remake of Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and it's something that Bethesda Game Studios and Bethesda haven't really commented on specifically. We don't know whether it's going to happen. And this video, I'm just going to say it outright, share my opinion on it, and we'll see what happens in the future. But I do not think we're ever going to get remasters of Fallout 3 and New Vegas. I'll provide my reasons why in this video, but you can let me know what you think. I know it's a little bit of a hot take, but we'll do it anyways. Let me be very clear, too. I don't know any information about whether there is or isn't going to be a remaster officially, all right? I've long left the company. If I see another article that mentions me saying something, I'm going to scream. I don't know anything. This is my speculation. Let's go on with it, okay? So, here are the reasons why I don't believe Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas will, in fact, ever be remastered. First of all, Todd said himself that they don't actually like to remaster games. Now, Skyrim is the obvious exception, and I'll get to that in a second, but as a general thing, Todd said that he doesn't like to remaster games. And that was in an article with The Guardian, and I'll provide you the exact quote right now. So it says here that Howard also demurred on something that fans are constantly asking for, especially since Skyrim was re-released on PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, modern remasters of Bethesda's older games. Quote from Todd himself, "I'm happy that you can play Morrowind now on an Xbox One as it's backwards compatible. I'm really happy that Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and others are making it easier for people to play older games as they were played at the time. I actually prefer that over remasters," he says. "I'd rather you play Morrowind the way it was. I think the age is part of its identity." Quote again, "For Skyrim Remastered, we had done some work on it, but it was already pretty visually close. But for something like Morrowind, my personal preference is not to remaster it. We also get asked a lot to remaster 1997's Fallout 1, and I usually say if you have a PC, you can play Fallout the way it was. I think that's how it should be. I think streaming technology is definitely coming, and it's going to make people's access to games infinitely easier. You've seen it happen to music and movies, and I think that's a great thing." So I'll provide the link to that article in the description below. There's a bunch of other topics that are talked about there. But straight from the horse's mouth, Todd said that they don't like to remaster games. Okay, so when he says that quite explicitly, you've instantly got to say the chances of a remaster or a remake for Fallout 3 and New Vegas are slim. Now, things change, times change, but actually, with the way Bethesda has developed and with the Xbox acquisition, I think time has changed even more against the possibility of getting a remaster for these games. I'll cover that in a second, but let me talk about the elephant in the room. Skyrim. Skyrim obviously got Skyrim Special Edition. It's gotten, I have no idea how many versions of Skyrim we've received at this point. There's been a lot, right? And people would instantly say, well, you've remastered Skyrim, you've re-released it hundreds of times. Why not do Fallout 3 now? Why not do Fallout New Vegas now? I'm going to say that Skyrim is absolutely the special case. Skyrim, from what I can see, is much, much bigger than Fallout 3 and New Vegas, possibly combined, all right? That game sells like hotcakes. It continues to sell massively. Just the other night, I was on my Nintendo Switch, and it was in the top 10 sold games on Nintendo Switch for the period. Like, that is insane. You don't... Obviously, Fallout 3 and New Vegas, they're popular games, but they're nowhere near, from what I can see, to the level of Skyrim. Skyrim sells ridiculous. So if there was any game in Bethesda Game Studios, or even Bethesda's catalog wider, if there was any game that almost needed or necessitated a remaster or a remake, it was Skyrim. And that's why it got it, because it made financial sense for Bethesda, right? But also as well, it was done so at a time when Xbox hadn't acquired Bethesda yet, okay? And this is important because when they sold Skyrim Special Edition and all the other editions, mostly they were selling for 50, 60, whatever dollars. They were selling it as a new standalone game and making hand over fist from those sales. The amount of money that they must have been receiving from Skyrim and those standalone sales must have been ridiculous. Like, I guarantee most of you out there probably own at least one or two versions of Skyrim that you've purchased separately on Switch or on PC or on Xbox. Like, that's how they've made so much money off that game. But now, as I said, Bethesda Game Studios and Bethesda ZeniMax is under Xbox. And the mentality is totally changed. Their strategy is completely different. It is Games Pass and focusing on backwards compatibility. So whereas before you had this kind of big reason to resell Skyrim because it was going to make so much money selling at $60 or whatever the equivalent price is in your territory, you have that situation there versus now when if they were to remaster or remake Fallout 3 or New Vegas, it would just be brought onto Game Pass day one, and it's not making those, standalone sales. So that's when you need to ask the question, is it worth it financially to remaster or remake those games just for them to be put onto Game Pass day one? There is no situation where they're remade and they're not put onto Game Pass, right? So let's put that out of our minds. So if they were, they'd be put onto Game Pass day one. Does that make financial sense to do that when you already have Fallout 3 and New Vegas on there? That literally makes, in my eyes anyways, it doesn't make much sense. Yes, a lot of people on Games Pass will probably play the remakes or the remasters, but is it enough to justify the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that it'll cost to remaster those two games? I don't think so. Maybe if they weren't under Xbox and they were selling them standalone on Xbox and on PlayStation and on Nintendo Switch, yeah, there's more of an argument there, but not now. Not for them just to go on Game Pass. I think it's more important for them, especially with the Game Pass model, to focus on the newer titles that are going to attract more people's attention and titles that they haven't played before, because again, everyone's played Fallout 3 in New Vegas already. So there's that reason too. Also as well, BGS probably don't see a need for it. Like functionally, as Todd said, he'd rather you just play the original versions as they were intended, right? But that makes even more sense when you consider on PC, there are so many mods for Fallout 3, so many more, I think even more mods for Fallout New Vegas. It's an even more popular game when it comes to mods. Like they can just say, you know what, you can play those games on PC and mod them as you like, and you can make them look as you like. Why do you necessarily need us to do the remastering for you when there have been hundreds of modders that have done the job for us already? That's a big reason there. Also as well, going back to, on Xbox and Game Pass and all that kind of stuff, those games are available at 4K with FPS boost at 60 frames per second. Bethesda probably looks at that and thinks that they're already great looking games. They already work on current consoles or current hardware. Any additional tweaks that we make to the visuals and to quality of life changes, again, probably doesn't actually alter the experience that much. And it probably does not justify as well the return on investment. So I think that's a big reason as well. And then the last one, actually the second last one, I've got two more. Fallout 76. BGS has openly said that they have a 5-year plan for that game. I believe that was said sometime earlier this year, right? So they have a long-term vision for this game. Now, some of you might laugh at that, or you might think that they're not telling the truth because Fallout 76 isn't supported as much nowadays anymore. The content updates have slowed down. The size of the updates that we get are nowhere near Wastelanders sized. When we get the pit next month, it's going to be a lot of repeatable content. Actually, it's this month. This month we get the pit. It's repeatable content. Some people have called it Daily Ops 2.0. So I get that. But in their minds, even though it's a smaller team working on that game and everyone's moving on to Starfield, they still see themselves having a 5-year plan for that game, right? So what happens if you remake or remaster Fallout 3 or New Vegas? Literally every Fallout fan is going to go play those games. And a lot of Fallout fans playing Fallout 76 currently are probably going to do the same. Why would it make sense for them to detract their audience away from a game that they're currently supporting and a game that they say and they think that they have a 5-year plan for? It doesn't make sense. And I know the Fallout fans that like 76 versus 3 in New Vegas are different, but they still overlap enough where I think in Bethesda's eyes, it doesn't make sense to make that decision. It doesn't make sense to, one, spend all the amount of money, as I said, into remaking the games, but also then detracting away from Fallout 76, which has microtransactions, which is still making a decent amount of money probably for them, because if it wasn't, they wouldn't be supporting it anymore. Like, that doesn't make sense financially, strategically. It doesn't make any sense at all. So there's that, and some of you might be upset by that, like, why don't they just stop supporting Fallout 76, move on to the next thing? I get it, right? But it's not going away, at least for the next 5 years, in Bethesda's eyes. And then the last thing as well, they just don't have the staff for it, okay? Like, we know BGS is, in terms of AAA size developers, they're actually on the smaller size, right? And Todd has said several times that they wish they could release games faster, but they're focused on so much. They, just moved on to Fallout 76 proper, to going on to Starfield, and then they have Elder Scrolls 6, and then he's admitted that they have Fallout 5 after that. So they have so many games planned, so many things that are on their plate, they probably don't have enough staff to be able to dedicate to a remaster or a remake of Fallout 3 or New Vegas. Now, the argument is there, why don't they just give it to a third-party studio? Why don't they just give it to someone else under Microsoft? On that latter point, they're also busy too. Like, every time someone makes the argument, oh, Obsidian should just make the next Fallout game, as an example, Obsidian is busy too, right? They have Avowed, they have Grounded, they have so much stuff that they're trying to do, Outer Worlds 2, right? Obsidian can't just take up the reins or something, and that's probably the same argument for a lot of other studios on the Xbox. They're all busy working on their own things and working on new games that probably make more sense to put onto Game Pass than just a remake or a remaster of Fallout 3 or New Vegas. So that argument is very difficult to justify. So the first option, why not give it to a third party, like outside of Xbox and Microsoft? Probably more likely, but again, that's also expensive. It costs a lot of money to hire on or to contract a third-party studio to remaster or remake the game. They need to see the return on investment. And with all the arguments that I mentioned about Game Pass, it's just probably not there. So for all those reasons, and probably more, I don't think we're ever going to get remakes or remasters of Fallout 3 or New Vegas. That's my honest opinion. And I know you always say never, okay? And maybe 10, 15, 20 years down the line, I'll be proven wrong, and I'll be happy to admit it, right? But it's my genuine belief that it's never going to happen. It just doesn't make sense. If it was going to happen, it should have happened before the Xbox acquisition, and it didn't. And it's only ever happened with Skyrim, so I think the chances are pretty much zero. But let me know what you think in the comments below, Wastelanders. And until next time, this has been Lone. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.